but that 88 is pulling away.
Earnhardt, Johnson, Menard, Blaney, third-generation star Dale Earnhardt Jr. brings him to the flag. Checkered flag waving. It's over. It's Earnhardt. Earnhardt trying to cover all spots.
Oh, yeah! Good job, Junebug.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. Checkered flag at Talladega.
Why is this one so much fun? Because your grin told so many stories on your cool-down lap.
It's just real emotional. I haven't won here in a long time. It was my daddy's birthday a couple days ago. Just real emotional, man.
My nerd world.
Well, I was pretty sketchy going into Phoenix after Friday's qualifying run, which was not good, and the car wasn't good. And let me just say up front that if Dale Jr. intends to, well, if they intend to compete for the championship this year, which I am assuming that they do, they're going to have to unload better than they have the past two weekends. Because unfortunately, as you know, you end up unloading slow, and that's just going to put you behind all weekend long, and Dale Jr.'s kind of behind this weekend. Now, I am pleased to tell you that on this week's My Nerd World Dale Earnhardt Jr. Race Preview podcast, which you're currently listening to, and I'm your host, John Justice, I am pleased to tell you that we do have some light at the end of the tunnel leading in to the race on Sunday. I'm going to keep this podcast fairly short today because I've been gone all day long. And I really want to be able to chill out for a while before I head to Phoenix to actually watch the race live. I went to both races last year, and unfortunately the second race of the season I ended up coming home early because of the rain and ended up watching it at home. So the weather is supposed to be spectacular tomorrow. Highs around the 80s. Track's going to be slick. We got this new downforce package, so it should make for a good race in that fantastic-looking, to watch that fantastic-looking red and yellow Axalta Dale Earnhardt Jr. number 88 machine. So before we get to your race preview portion of this podcast, let's look back just a little bit to last weekend and the Las Vegas race, which was a weird one. My prediction was correct. Dale Earnhardt Jr. ended up coming home in 8th place. I predicted a top 10, and he ended up running pretty much where I thought he was going to run all day long. There was a lot of weird variables involved in the race with the wind and the dust and the weather. It just made for it was a good race, but it was a difficult race, and they never really got the car where it needed to be. It wasn't until really the very end, the last run, the car was running better than it had run all day long. But they just weren't competitive, at least not up in the top 5. So the fact that Dale Jr. was able to come home with that 8th place finish was decent. But we got to do better. Again, we need to have some momentum, and things are kind of stagnant right now with the 88 team. It's not bad, but it's not good either. They're fighting really hard to get the cars right. And unfortunately, this seems to be indicative of what I was kind of expecting was going to happen with this low downforce package. He's running better than I expected with this low downforce package, again, based off of the 2 races that they ran last week. But I feel like they're a little bit behind. Well, and look, Hendrick Motorsports, apart from Jimmy Johnson's win in Atlanta and Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s second place there at Atlanta, which well deserved, but they neither of them had the fastest cars. I mean, I think Junior had a faster car than Jimmy Johnson did, but Hendrick seems a little bit behind compared to Penske to a certain extent, but certainly to JGR. I mean, Joe Gibbs Racing right now, whether it's in the Xfinity Series or in Sprint Cup. I mean, they've really got it dialed in currently with those Toyotas. As a matter of fact, I inadvertently saw that Kyle Busch won the race. I was driving around. I had a lot of stuff to do for the radio station today, and There was an air show at the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base I had to go out to, and then I had to run a bunch of errands because my 13-year-old son dropped his cell phone and ended up destroying the screen on it. But be that as it may, I was listening to a bit of the race in the car as I was driving around today, and, there was about 50 laps to go, and I'm like, oh, cool, when I get home, I've DVR'd it, I'll just watch it. Well, when I got online, I went to look and inadvertently saw that Kyle Busch won the race, which is fine because he was leading every time I tuned in, and so I really didn't miss a whole heck of a lot. So, Hendrick Motorsport in and of itself just seems to be a bit behind, and they got to catch up. Dale Jr. unloaded slow, and we'll get to this in just a moment. Qualifying was absolutely just atrocious. Before we do that, just briefly, let me mention that there are a few new items available at both NASCAR.com and at DaleJr.com. Nothing specific enough that I want to point out. Just some new gear. Next week, we've got the Batman versus Superman with the Jimmy Johnson Superman car, and Dale Jr. is running the Batman car at Auto Club Speedway. That should be pretty cool, and I anticipate a lot of really silly Batman versus Superman promotions between Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jimmy Johnson next week, and I also expect that we're going to see a lot of trailers for the movie since the movie opens up the following week. I don't think it opens up next week. I think it opens up the week after that. But anyways, there's a lot of Batman stuff for Dale Jr. available on the websites. A lot of new female woman apparel available on the websites too. So if you're looking for some new gear or you've been there before and hadn't seen something that you like, you might want to go check out both NASCAR.com and the DaleJr.com website and his store to see the new items there. There's a bunch of new stuff for Junior Motorsports too. So if you're like me and you keep sort of a contingent of Dale Jr. Motorsports gear, if you go to DaleJr.com, you can get to Junior Motorsports and pick up some of those items there as well. So I would encourage you to go and do so to support our favorite driver. All right, so I apologize for that slight gap in time. My 9-year-old came in to ask me how to do multiplayer on Star Wars Battlefront. Apparently, he did not hear his daddy talking on the microphone. Anyways, so go get your gear, support our favorite driver. Let's move on to Phoenix, shall we?
My nerd world.
This is an interesting race because this is my home track. And fortunately, Dale Jr. has been running better there in the past few years. Unfortunately, it's not his best track. I personally wish that they had never reconfigured it. I really liked the old configuration. I know why they did it, and I know that it's faster now, and I know the race sells out every time, and I get all that. And so from that standpoint, those are a bunch of positives. But I really miss how flat the track was and that weird dogleg on the backstretch before they went and they added the banking to turns 1 and 2, the backstretch, and 3 and 4. And the one thing that I really don't like about it, and I've mentioned, and I think I probably mentioned this on both of the Phoenix podcasts for both races last year, was I don't like how far down on the backstretch that the drivers can go and cut that corner. I just, if you're playing the game on NASCAR 15, you can cut that entire straightaway. You don't gain a ton off of it, and you really got to be careful coming back up onto the track. But I don't know what it is. It just seems weird. Maybe that's just what it is. When I watch the race and I see drivers completely skip the banking on the backstretch and go out on the flat, I just kind of go, I maybe just put the yellow line down there. Maybe that would make me happy. Maybe on the banking, put a white line and then put a amount of bounds line on the backstretch and change it, perhaps. I know that there is some discussion going on that they may end up doing some type of Daytona Rising upgrade to Phoenix International Raceway, and I would be fine with that. I mean, the facility could use an upgrade. I don't think it's been upgraded since the 90s. So, I mean, I could certainly, I think that'd be cool. But, at the same time, my point to that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. My point to that is they're talking about moving the start-finish line to the backstretch. And I think if they did that, they would be putting grandstands on the backstretch. So that would essentially become the front stretch, I guess. That's part of the upgrades they're thinking about doing. And I know they were talking about that on Door Bumper Clear, the TJ Majors podcast, and I think they might have been talking about it on the Dale Jr. Download this week too. But they were talking about how you could see, you could go 5 wide across the finish line on that last lap, and I don't know, maybe that would be exciting. I like the way it's configured right now. I like that long front stretch with the start-finish line right there. I think that's cool. It is a unique racetrack. It is tough to pass on. It is prone for long green flag runs. So, my real only complaint is that there's no out of bounds on the backstretch. I just find that really, really, really weird. Okay, so let's get to Dale Jr. and expectations this weekend. They did not load the car off the truck fast. The car was not that good. When you watched him in qualifying, you could visually see, if you watch him riding the gas and the time on the lap, on the ticker on TV, he was pretty fast through 1 and 2, maintained speed through the backstretch on the banking, and then going into 3 and 4, he just lost all of it. The car was just way too slow going through turns 3 and 4. So he only ended up qualifying 26th. So he's got a big hole to dig out of. And this race goes by really, really fast. And so they've got to get it dialed in if he's going to have any chance at a top 5, let alone the win. Thankfully today, they seem to have really made some changes on the truck. I mean, on the car. Dale Jr. Mentioned in a tweet that... he said after qualifying, today reminded me of last fall's Richmond, qualifying 29th, similar issues, and result. We ran 5th that weekend, important practices tomorrow. When you go and look at his tweets after practice, you can see he says 2 good practices for the Nationwide 88 car today, much more competitive than we were yesterday. Lots of fun out there. So he seems pretty pleased with the way they have been working and tweaking on the car. When we look at the lap averages, and this is where it ends up mattering, right? He put up some pretty fast laps in both practices today, but again, doesn't matter nearly as much. But in the grand scheme of things, if it makes you feel better, I think he posted the 6th fastest speed in practice 1, and in happy hour, he was 11th fastest. Oh, no, sorry. Hold on, let me back up. He was faster than that, I think. No, he was 14th. 14th fastest, 1 lap in the second practice. It's again, 10 consecutive lap averages that I am looking at currently. And he ended up posting the 11th fastest best consecutive lap average. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, again, looking at the drivers ahead of him, several drivers that, in my opinion, don't have any business being up there in the top 10. So when you start removing guys like Paul Menard, Eric Almirola, Ryan Blaney's running good, but again, I don't see him running up there. Austin Dillon, I think we're looking again at a top 10 car. My concern going into the race tomorrow is he's starting so far back in the pack. Phoenix isn't known for a lot of wrecks, so I imagine that he'll get up there into the top 15 fairly early and then probably remain there for a little while until hopefully we get a caution and they have a chance to come in and work on it. If the race ends up going green for too long, that's where I think we're going to be in trouble, because you can go down laps quickly at Phoenix. And it is, as I said, notorious for having a lot of green flag runs. So things are really going to have to fall our way in order for Junior to get a good finish. I don't think he's fast enough to drive himself up to the lead. Now, if we get a caution, which we normally get a couple, and we're good on the pit stops, I think we've got at least a top 10. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say we're going to get a top 5. And the reason I say that is because his attitude seems to be good. they seem to have begun making, if not overnight and into tomorrow, changes to the car. So they have a direction they're heading. This is what I like, is that they started off slow, didn't get